Do you have Specter Tenebria? Oh, you don't. Okay, no problem, dude. Actually, me either. But we're still going to beat 102. What's going on, guys? This is Arcaden with Level Up Together, and today we bring you the worst floor I've fought to date. Abyss Floor 102. I tried literally everything I had. I even 6-starred Blaze Dingo when I saw some Blaze Dingo strategies. Shout out to Deity. Well done, man. It was good stuff. I tried it. Everyone's using Specter Tenebria, and so I love this, and I want to just like send a huge shout out to Tristan Wolf, because I was getting to the point of just such frustration, and he sent me a strategy that is just so good. So let's take a look at the team, the composition of how this is going to work, and then we'll talk about kind of what we're doing, because I'm going to throw this out there. We didn't just not use Specter Tenebria, we also used 3 characters that are only level 50, and then Lilias. And to be quite honest, the Lilias was awesome, but you could probably even replace Lilias with like Adventurer Ross and be just fine. So let's take a look at the team. So since I've already mentioned Lilias, let's go ahead and start with her. Number 1, Fire Unit. Fire units are incredible for this fight. You're going to notice there's a lot of people that are going to have a lot of videos that are going to have potentially Adventurer Ross, Lilias, Fire Litica, Fire Tenebria, Ravi, a whole bunch of different fire units who are just phenomenally good for this fight, especially if you have them geared, especially if you have them molded. Depending on where you're at, for most people, I imagine a lot of people, of all the types of characters out there, fire are going to be the ones that you probably have the least of comparatively to other things, because you don't need fire for Wyvern. You don't have to use fire for a lot of different, I mean, it just makes sense why there's not a whole bunch. If water units are strong, why would you have a ton of fire units? You get the gist. Here's the deal. Lilias in particular is super good for this for 2 different reasons. Number 1, you're going to be able to force a lot of extra hits on the Hazel, which you need in phase 1, because both of the phases in this fight are actually very sort of boss-esque. You'll see as you jump in. So you really want to have that dual attack consistency on the S1, and then more importantly than anything else is the CC that you're going to gain from the S2. If you were going to mola anything on this character, I would say +3 this. I didn't, and it was infuriating multiple times. But having a 100% chance to provoke on your S2 is really big, because you want to be able to CC the ads very, very well, aka provoke them to hit you, because you get a nice 2-turn on there, and you'll see how this gets even more like stackable as we continue to talk through more of this. You do use the S3 a little bit here just for some combat readiness push, and every once in a while to cleanse off a debuff if you get lucky, went like during the taunt phase. But in general, she's just good to be able to be a tank that is fire, that is going to be able to give you dual attacks, and is going to be able to have CC. So very consistent character. Lily is amazing. The final thing that you should know about my Lilias in particular is, yeah, we use Adamant Shield, which is just to be able to stunt a lot of damage coming in. But I just want to point out that like her stats are not that crazy. I don't have amazing stats on my Lilias. This is kind of like, if I had to look down my tier list of like tons and tons of different tanks that are geared, right now Lilias is just not towards the top of mine, and so she's kind of wearing leftover gear. She's 186 speed, almost 20k health, almost 1500 defense, and then having the effectiveness of being over 65%, because that's what you need on a fire unit for this particular fight. You need 65% or more. She's good. She's golden. She's sitting within the ranges that you need. So there's the stats for her as well. Next up, we're going to start talking about the 3 5-star characters that we used for this fight. We'll start with Fire Schuri first. Not going to lie, I actually built this character today when we did it. We had a couple extra Shuris lying around just to be able to 5-star him. 5-starred him up. He didn't even have enough to necessarily even go that high on extra speed, but we did keep the speed as the imprint. We did not actually end up adding extra crit chance because we didn't need it. I took my Cirrus's gear off and put it on him. So if you're trying to decide like, well, what kind of character gear should I move over? Basically you want a fast character that has 100% crit. That's really the most important thing here. You'll also notice that I don't use any Molagoras on this because I wanted to see if we could beat it without, personally. Like, as much as I would like the extra 5% poison inflict chance on the S1, as well as another 10% combat readiness push every single time we do S1. I mean, 25% is huge. That would have been really nice, but again, not a huge deal. We also didn't have the turn reduction on the S3, but you really don't use the S3 as much as you'd think. So we do use it a couple times, and I'll show you when that happens in the fight. But yeah, no molas in general. Moved over gear that we were already using. This was like basically just speed gear. I mean, we happen to have almost 10,000 health, 700 defense. I mean, if he gets hit too hard, he's done, right? And we kind of figure that with all of these guys. And you'll see that the strategy doesn't require you to have a ton of health. It actually just requires that you're landing debuffs more than anything else. So note to self, we didn't quite have 100% crit. We had 98%, which was fine. If we didn't crit, then we might have had to start over, but I think we crit like every single time, so it really wasn't a huge deal. Crit damage, not important. It's all about the crit chance for this character. I have him at 245 speed, so he was literally cycling like mad, which was very, very nice. I don't think you need him that fast. I think, again, a better speed-tuned team would be a lot closer in speeds across the board. I have some big gear on some characters and some little gear on other ones. So you'll notice also he is over 72% effectiveness, so his effectiveness is there. So if he lands a poison, he's getting at least the maximum chance to actually land it. And so now we're actually worrying about the RNG of the 25% chance that he has. This character was so good for cycling and for hitting the Hazel as well too, which we'll explain. I liked that because he was so fast, I thought it would make sense to put a Bloodstone on him. You end up getting a lot of extra healing there, and that was huge. So Schuri, amazing character for this particular floor. The next damage dealer on the list is going to be Kiris. Kiris, we did use on the last floor. We changed a few things for her for this particular floor. Basically, instead of having, I think I had Oath Key before, which I don't even know if that was necessary. Either way, doesn't matter. This time it actually is necessary. You do want to actually either have like something like Sword of Judgment or what we used was Rosa Hargana, something that can basically give you more chances at getting more poisons on the Celine during the final phase. The big thing to note with her is we actually cut some of her defensive stats, aka her health and defense, and add a lot more into the effectiveness, because on this floor, if you're not a fire unit, you actually have a negative 100% effectiveness, which means that you need at least 165% effectiveness to consistently land debuffs. So being that she's your main damage dealer through applying poisons, you need to be over 165 with her. That's a must. Finally, for this particular composition, our last 5-star character is going to be all-rounder Wanda. Finishing up this specialty change, I actually wasn't sure if I had even filled in the awakening tree. Tristan, who is the one who suggested this entire strategy, actually has like maybe seven points in the entire thing. Mine actually is fully plus 30'd. I don't think it's necessary. From what he had said, he was having no trouble with it at all. Basically, all-rounder Wanda is amazing here because she has a 2-turn stun built into her kit. She also has a 100% chance to randomly target a person on the other team, which is amazing because that'll increase damage received to the target by 15%. The biggest piece, though, is when you use the S1 and somebody is actually targeted from the S2, you actually can reduce their combat readiness by about 15% as well. So things that I would suggest, it's a 3-star character, so again, you're using Stigma to end up molaying the character. Getting at least a +3 on weak point is a big deal, just for the combat readiness push. Making sure that you have +3 on steady aim, so that way you have a 100% chance to target a random unit. That's definitely really nice, as well as 1 shot, 1 kill, which is the thing that's going to have that 2-turn stun. That needs to be it needs a 100% stun chance. So that's all we're really doing in any of these, is basically just getting through the utility concepts of it. If it has to do with extra damage, we don't care. This character is not here for damage at all. It's all about CC. So where I took my gear for this particular character, because I don't normally have this character geared, I ended up using the Resolute Soldier artifact, which is actually super good, just to add a little bit of extra effectiveness for your team as well as defense. We found that worked pretty well. Also, you'll note that I'm using this gear is like more 90 than most of the other stuff. I actually stole this from Falconer Clury because I knew that what I was going to need here is I knew I was going to need effectiveness, and I knew that I was going to probably want to be a little bit healthy and a little bit fast. That was sort of my thought process with all-rounder Wanda. You don't need 100% crit chance like you do with Fire Schuri, so it's a lot easier to gear her. You're only gearing her to be basically fast, cycle turns as fast as possible, and have enough tank to not just fully die right off the bat. So now Now, after taking a look at all of these characters, and which are obviously weird, we have 1 6-star and 3 5-stars. Let's take a look at how this fight works and then actually try and take this son of a gun down. So as we jump into phase 1, there were a couple things that I thought were important to note right off the bat. There are a lot of abilities in these next 2 rounds, and honestly, wave 1 is just as important and kind of just as hard to be able to get through as wave 2 when you first start. So keep that in mind. You are building a team that actually has to work on both waves, and they both kind of play a different game. So for wave 1, things that you're going to want to be able to focus on with this particular team: making sure that the robot stays stunned the entire time, making sure that Mascot Hazel is also CC'd, whether that's with taunt or with like later down the road, like a couple turns in, being able to also get another 2-turn stun with the Wanda, because you're able to get some nice extensions from the Kiris S2. All of these are fine. Just make sure that you're doing whatever you can to keep them both CC'd. Hazel has dispels to be able to get rid of some of those stuns. She has dispels to get rid of poison. She is a healer. I mean, she has all the different things that make her very, very annoying, as well as she actually will buff up everybody. The gigantic robot will actually just wipe your team if he's not CC'd the whole time. So don't allow that. Make sure they're CC'd constantly. Ricarus is probably the least of your worries most of the time. The biggest problem you're going to have with him is when he like accidentally provokes your whole team. He has a 75% chance to hit everybody with a provoke at the end of his S3. So just keep that in mind. He does pretty good damage, but more than anything, it's those taunts that are annoying, because whenever you hit him, it actually boosts the robot forward. If you keep the robot stunned the whole time, he actually gets less combat readiness push from hitting Ricarus, which is amazing. That's what you want. Make sure, because of the other ability, and this is the thing that kind of keeps your team sort of alive the whole time, is being able to get that skill nullifier up that actually hits everybody. So skill nullifier is not that important when you're attacking into people, because you can still land poisons through skill nullifier, no problem. But the other thing that's actually really nice is that you'll actually be able to tick your poisons without actually breaking a skill nullifier as well. So keep that in mind. Really, the skill nullifier being put on all like 7 characters here is actually more beneficial for your team than it is for theirs. So how do I make that skill nullifier happen? Well, here's what's going to happen. After you've CC'd the 2 in the back, everybody but Kiris is going to be single target attacking the Hazel, because every 5 times that will actually proc a new skill nullifier to be procced on everybody on the entire map. So make sure that you're spending your entire time focusing in on Hazel. That's going to be your best bet, unless you're Kiris. Kiris, stack poisons, extend poisons, do whatever you can to get as many poisons as you can on that Ricarus, but she's the only one actually hitting the character. So as long as you, and I'll just repeat this again, keep the robot fully stunned and fully CC'd the whole time. You're extending out those CCs with the Wanda. You're making sure that you're keeping the Hazel as CC'd as you absolutely can as well, because you really don't want to see any of these debuffs get dispelled, particularly poisons, but also the stun as well. Both of those 2 things are too important to not see exist forever. So CC both of those, make it happen. Captain Ricarus then will become kind of a trivial phase where you're just waiting for Kiris to land enough poisons to basically just tick them all the way down. Not a huge deal. Keep in mind that when you get to the end of the phase, you want to make sure that all of your characters moving into phase 2 have as many souls as they can, although truly you won't get a chance to use souls all that often for this particular fight. So keep that in mind, because the Celine actually will screw up all of your soul gain. That really, more importantly, you want to make sure that all 4 characters have all of their skills up, and if it's at all possible, time out your like 5th hit on Hazel to happen just before Ricarus is going to go, so that all 4 of your characters can join into phase 2 with skill nullify still up from the round before. So as you saw, getting through phase 1 is relatively consistent if you just keep this, if you keep that composition going. You're going to get through there, I would say 99% of the time, no problem. The team works perfectly well for phase 1. Phase 2 is a little bit harder and a lot more RNG, so just keep that in mind before you even get started here, that like you may have to try this fight many times just due to the RNG here at the end. I used one thing, and I'll give you some suggestions that might actually make this a little easier for you too, that I actually didn't do myself. This entire strategy was even thought up by a guy named Nukes, and then Tristan Wolf actually shared it with me. In this phase, just like in phase 1, you want to make sure that you are stunning the golden robot. You want to make sure that you are 2-turn provoking with the Lilias, because the Lilias also has CC just as much as the Wanda does, and they're both 2 turns. So you need to make sure that both of those land on those 2 robots. If they're able to do any abilities at all, we'll be debuffing you constantly, dispelling off all the poisons that are supposed to come onto Celine. They'll be ruining your day. Literally, they will make it so awful. Do not allow them to do that. CC the snot out of them and never, ever let them do anything else. Your entire goal of this phase is to make sure that you can stack as many poisons as fast as possible. Celine is an interesting character in that when you're fighting against her, she doesn't want to have, obviously, any of those poisons on her at all. So if she gets to her S3, she will just dispel off all debuffs. So you really want to try and finish her off before she even gets to a single S3, but particularly before she phases. And gets into the final phase of her fight, making sure that you get as many poisons as you possibly can. You'll notice that Celine has a 1, and then that number can turn into a 2 and then a 3, depending on how many times she's actually been hit. That's just to determine who her blink strike is going to actually attack. If it is on 1, it will blink strike the character on your team with the highest attack. If it is on 2, it will randomly attack anyone on your team. And if it is on 3, it will hit the target with the highest health on your team. So you do have the ability to kind of control how those blink strikes are going to work, and blink strike will only happen if a character on your team uses a non-combat ability. Basically, either S2 from Lilias or S3 from Kiris. S3 from Kiris you are going to want to use as much as possible. That's why we decided to go with Crom Cruise, basically to be able to use that S3 ability to land as many poisons as possible twice with the Kiris. To be honest, it didn't work out as well as I had liked. We did end up beating it, but I think it could have been cleaner if we had gone the original Nukes strategy, which is once you end up actually getting the extensions with like Kiris and you've got those provokes, you get the stuns up and everything else, then what you actually could do is you could spend your souls instead of on one Crom Cruise, you could have Archie in there, and then you could burn Schuri for extra CC if you wanted the extra turn. Like you could use the S3 to extend basically, like move your team forward, move their team backwards with combat readiness, and then as well move your team forward just a little bit further by using an S1 on the Celine afterwards for more poisons. Also, you have the ability to burn on Kiris to ensure the extensions because it will actually ignore the effect resist. So honestly, those are probably much more consistent routes than trying to have Crom Cruise randomly try and make this happen, and that, of course, the right targets are going to get hit by all of the blink strikes. It just makes way more sense to do it the original Nukes way, but yeah, we didn't. We used Crom Cruise, and it worked, but you can see it's a very dirty fight by the end of it when we won. So anyways, how this is going to work, you're going to stack as many poisons as you can with Kiris. You're going to be trying to stack poisons with the Fire Schuri as well, just constantly landing as much as you can. Hopefully you'll get lucky with Fire Schuri. He doesn't have a high chance of giving you poisons, but there is a chance there. And then whoever has the hit debuff on them is the one that Wanda will probably want to S1 as well from time to time, just to constantly you want to be constantly forcing back the robots and Celine to give yourself as many attacks as you possibly can. You really want to stack as many poisons as possible before you get into the final phase. Final phase happens when Celine hits 40%. Everything gets crazy. All of the CCs fall off of the robots. They end up gaining a regeneration and like some kind of like buffing one as well, like they're like an aura that they end up getting that are undispellable on both of the robots. You can re-CC them, but honestly, by the time Celine hits 40%, she needs to die like now. So your goal here is to stack up as many poisons as you can before that, extend them out as best as possible, have enough souls so that once the Celine ticks down to under 40%, if she's down at 15%, you can Archie and just finish her. If she's not, then you want to just let the poisons continue to attack and tick down on the Celine. If she's under 40% and you have enough poisons to be able to just allow them to tick down, don't do anything. Just focus on the robots. Do not hit the Celine, because you will actually force her to you'll force her to kind of like speed up and sort of go into a berserk. So just let the poisons just tick her down without actually hitting her. All in all, this fight is purified cancer to the, I mean, on every single level. There is just so much RNG in every single aspect of how things land. Did you land extensions? Did you get the stuff that, like, it really is important that when there are burn opportunities to make sure that you can land extensions 100%. You can make sure that that you're able to, like, actually control where the fight's going. Those are going to be your biggest and best bets. All in all, I would say if you get down to the final phases and you're like, oh man, I didn't make it, play it out. See if you accidentally land the poisons that you need, because you do have a couple of different poison characters. You don't know if they're going to get any dual attacks from the Rosa Hargana, or if they just randomly dual attack anyways. You may as well play the RNG game to your favor, considering most of the time the RNG is not going to. So maybe every once in a while you will. But all in all, get her down. Make sure those poisons happen. She will tick down far enough eventually with this team composition, because you do have the right components to make it happen. It'll just be a second to make it happen. Get it done, and then we can move on to 103. So that's it. RNG, boys. It's a very RNG fight. I know that I would prefer to just come up with a strategy that could just win much more consistently. If I wanted to do that, you probably would want a Specter Tenebria. You probably would want to have those characters that can do real damage, have a stun just built into their kit, and naturally also poison at the same time. And she kind of fits that bill. Trying to work around it, I realize, is a little bit harder, but this is a way that you can kind of cut through, beat the first phase extremely consistently, and then if you have to screw up on the second phase, no big deal. It's sort of like a cleaver leave situation. You can get it done pretty quick. I hope this is good for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you guys drop a like, comment, subscribe. We love all of you guys so much, and we love being able to produce content for you all the time at Level Up Together. So we will see you guys in the next video. 103, here we come, boys. Peace.